Have you ever been told it's not what you said, it's the way you said it? If that's the case, then you have been discussing tone and actually considering rhetoric. And those are two concepts that are foundational in any composition class you might take. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you what those terms mean and how you can be strategic in using tone for a purpose. Rhetoric and tone. So rhetoric is a word you probably heard before, but oftentimes when people talk about rhetoric, they're talking about empty rhetoric. And they use that as a way of saying that the person is speaking, but it doesn't have a lot of substance. And politicians are often accused of using empty rhetoric. But that's not actually what rhetoric means in a composition class. In a composition class, rhetoric is the study or art of using language effectively. And by effective, I mean language is used to achieve a specific purpose, and it's strategically used to better achieve that purpose. So, for example, those politicians with their rhetoric, they might be addressing a group of voters, and they're going to talk about their platform. They're going to talk about their beliefs and what they stand for. And so this is an honest politician. And this politician wants to convey accurately and truly what they stand for. But even so, they're not going to give the same exact speech to each of the different groups that they might be addressing. If they were addressing a group of farmers or versus a group of teachers or a group of small business owners, each of those groups would be interested in different parts of their platform. So they wouldn't just give the same exact speech to each one of those groups. They would modify their speech and their message to more directly connect to their audience. And you do this too. This is just a natural part of human evolution. Through trial and error, we develop a sense of rhetoric over time as we grow and learn and see how people react to the way we speak. So I want you to imagine that you have this amazing night out, the best night out ever with your group of guy friends or your group of girlfriends. And so now you're going to come home after that night and you're going to tell your parents about the night that you had. And you're going to tell them this so that they understand and they're happy for you that you had such a good time, and they're going to continue to let you hang out with your group of friends. So you, in that case, might add or leave out certain details of the story. You might play up a certain emotion or play down another emotion you might have had. And then the way that you approach that story and tell that story to your parents is because you want them to support hanging out with those friends again. Same night, different audience that you're speaking to. You're going to tell the story of that same night, not to your parents this time, but instead to the one friend who didn't go with you guys that night. And you're going to tell that story differently because your purpose is to make your friend sad. You want your friend to be sad that they didn't come with you on that night out. So you're going to play a whole different set of details and emotions and experiences because your rhetorical aim has changed. Rhetorical aim means the intended audience and the intended purpose of your message. So in that first scenario, your intended audience was your parents, and the intended purpose was to truthfully depict what you did that night, but also to make sure that they feel comfortable with you hanging out with your same group of friends. In the second scenario, your intended audience was the friend who didn't go with you, and your intended purpose is to make them sad that they didn't go with you so that next time they are sure to join the fun. And so the way that you tell those stories is different because your rhetorical aim is different. Your best tool for developing a rhetorical strategy is really to think about your tone. And there's this funny little bit that I've linked into this slide deck about Jerry Seinfeld talking about the importance of tone, which you should definitely check out. But tone is basically the attitude that a writer has toward his or her subject. It's an emotional attitude. And so when you're talking, you can infuse words with tone by your body language and by the sound of your voice, the way that you pronounce that word. So think about the word no, and the ways that you can make that one word have so many different emotional attitudes just on the way you say it. You could say no, or no, or you could say no. And all three of those different ways of speaking convey a different attitude, but in writing, you don't really have that luxury. And there's so many different kinds of tones. Any emotional nuance that you could have is an emotional nuance that you can express in writing. So you want to think about your tone, because writing is in essence a transaction, and it's sort of a transaction between the reader and the writer, and your rhetorical aim, your purpose, can only be achieved if you choose an appropriate tone. So a lot of times you're trying to create a common ground in your writing between yourself and the reader, and so you want to really think about where your audience is coming from, what's their personal investment already in this issue, and controlling your tone is the best way to effectively achieve your rhetorical aim. So if you're trying to create a particular tone, or you're trying to determine the tone of somebody else's work, you can remember LIDS. LIDS means language, imagery, details, diction, and syntax. Okay, so language is really the tone. It's kind of the end effect. And the images are the mental pictures that you create that appeal to the senses. Diction just means word choice. Details would be the specific things about the scenario that you choose to include or leave out. And syntax is the way you construct your sentences. So here I have a paragraph from a letter, and I want you to listen to this and think about what the tone would be. So, Dear President Reed, I write to ask you to rescind a $10 citation I received on April 4th for parking in North State's Lot E. I know that this lot is reserved for faculty use, but flooding in 3 of the 4 commuter lots left me with no reasonable parking alternative. The campus police have not been able to help, so I turn to you. So let's think about the tone of this for a minute. The rhetorical aim of this paragraph is to convince the president of the college to rescind a $10 citation, a ticket that the person got for parking in the wrong spot. So to accomplish that, they have used a respectful and rational tone. You can tell that it's a respectful and rational tone by using that LIDS formula. So the images that the author has chosen to use, flooding in 3 of the 4 commuter lots, presents a sense of what that person was up against. And the fact that they gave actual numbers, just how much of an obstacle it was, helps to create that sense of rationality. Diction, or word choice, in this case, you can look and see several words in here that the way that the author chose this word over that word really creates an additionally reasonable attitude. So rescind rather than take back, sort of more formal. Dear President Reed, addressing that person formally by their title, looking for a reasonable parking alternative. So those words are all going to kind of lend themselves to that tone of rationality and respect. Some of the details that the writer chose to include were that the campus police have already been contacted and they weren't able to help. She also includes and takes responsibility for the fact that she knew it was parking reserved for faculty, but she still had to make this choice because it was the only reasonable one. And then syntax, sentence structure, there's a lot of different things you can say about that. So syntax would be like, is it asking a question? Is it a short, direct statement? Is it a long, flowing sentence? And as you get more and more into grammar, you can work with syntax more, but just kind of looking at this, look at that very last sentence. The campus police have not been able to help me, so I turn to you. And so by putting that first campus police aspect into that sentence first, and then bringing it back to the president, it's almost like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, right? Like really sets the president up into the position of power and recognizes the position of power that the audience has. Now consider what would happen if you changed the tone and you made it a poor choice about the tone you were going to use. Same rhetorical aim, different tone. Listen, Reed, I'm fed up. I've been unfairly ticketed for the last time. The worthless campus police have only persecuted me with endless tickets when it's not my fault that the stupid lots flood every year. As president, you had better do something about this. In this case, I don't think that the person would achieve their rhetorical aim if their aim was to get the ticket taken away. I think they might get instead like a knock on the door from the campus police. You know, you threatened the president, now you're in trouble. Because the tone is inappropriate. The tone is angry and demanding. As you can see, the images of endless tickets, and then some of that diction is just straight up offensive. Stupid, persecuted, unfairly, worthless, and my personal favorite, you had better do something. creates that demanding, angry, inappropriate tone. She includes details that she's fed up. She makes an implied threat in sentence 2. As president, you had better do something about this, is an implied threat. And so that detail is really not going to work in regards to the rhetorical aim. And then that exclamation mark at the beginning is a form of yelling. And so this is, you can see how this could be problematic if you don't understand your tone and you're not thoughtful about your audience and your purpose. So in essence, if you know your tone, it's possible to achieve your rhetorical aim. So that's just a kind of a nutshell explanation of what tone is and how it can be used to more effectively write. And so you can look around and start thinking about the ways that you present your message and what you really want to accomplish by having that conversation, whether it's written or verbal, with your audience. And hopefully that helps you to achieve all the rhetorical aims in your life. And yeah, right on.